Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. I am on my way back home. It's been a very interesting long day, and I'll be honest with you, I have no clue what's going on in the news. I have not been able to have the time to check, so I don't know. So I can't tell you anything about the assassin. I can't tell you anything about what Trump's done, what Israel or Russia or Iran or any of those other places. I don't know. I'm sure something's happened, probably. In case some of you are wondering, I know Travis puts a button-up shirt on. What's going on? I had the opportunity today to visit a nuclear reactor, do a tour, which isn't in itself that unusual or a big deal. You know, there's a lot of places you can do that. But I got to sit down for a few hours with a nuclear engineer and learned and talked about small modular and small micro reactors. Now, some of you are like, what in the world? What is he getting at? What's this have to do with anything? Just bear with me, because it has a lot to do with things. And I had the opportunity to learn this because I think it's helping me understand a little bit more of where we're headed for the future. Because I think that a lot of people still aren't quite getting what really the full scope of everything that's going on. So be patient with me here so that I can kind of get this all into perspective. Of course, I'm not going to cover everything in this video. It's just too much. But and I'm not really even going to talk specifically about what I learned today or anything like that. I think you'll learn something. Some of you already understand all this. But there's a group of us here in Missouri, in my area, that have been doing a lot of research and digging on this topic that I'm getting ready to tell you. And that is, well, what is all of this about? I've talked about this before. Remember, I made a video, if you've been watching me for a while, I made a video a couple of weeks ago about what is all of this stuff about? Like, what's going on? And I said that at the time, I said, well, it's all about AI and this hyper technology. It's all about getting us to the place where, you know, we have this technology. And that's what all the wars and all the fighting is, and all the tariffs and all this fight to be dominant in the world is because of that. And that has not changed, except I want to talk a little bit more about the clarification of what I mean by that. So today, in today's world, there's all these wars that are happening. There's conflict everywhere. There's been wars that's popped up and gone away. And then there's all this potential for conflict, right? You know, us in Venezuela and other things like that are, you know, Taiwan and China and the Middle East and all this stuff that's a possibility that may happen, right? You've got tariffs. You've got this disruption here in the United States, kind of this social breakdown. You're seeing it in Europe in many countries. You've seen it in Nepal this past week. Other countries, it's all kind of falling apart, it seems like, in a lot of ways. And there's disruption, and the stock markets are going up, and there's this push for digital and currency and stable coins and everything right now. The end result goal that they're pushing for is AI and all of this advanced technology. That is what the whole goal is about. But to get to that point, they have to have the energy and the materials to make that. And that's where I want to go today with this. Most of these wars, pretty much every one of them, all of these conflicts, if you dig deep enough, you will see that the real reason that they're happening is either because of energy or because of raw materials that would be used in these different technological advanced devices, whether it's AI or drones or surveillance or something. Because it's going to take a lot of energy to make this happen, massive amounts of energy. You know, you've probably heard me and other people say that China is ahead of us when it comes to technology, and in some ways they are, not in every way. But the thing that they are definitely ahead of us on is in energy production. Just a few weeks back, there was a report from Chinese media that a group of Chinese engineers were allowed, this wasn't espionage, this was allowed, to come over here in the United States and tour some of our electrical grid, electrical production capabilities, and they went back home and they laughed. They said there is no way that the United States is capable of doing anything in this basically war of technology, because they do not have the grid and the electrical energy capabilities to maintain it, to keep up with it. And so that's where these small, modular and micro reactors, they're small nuclear reactors, which, excuse me, it's not a brand new thing. It has existed in the past, the technology, it's just never been implemented. And so that's the next new wave of building these small nuclear reactors, because it's going to be easier and cheaper to build multiple ones of those to produce the amount of electricity needed to run all of these AI data centers and these AI computers and the technology needed to do everything. That's where the United States is. That's why Greenland is such a big deal. It's not so much about trade corridors with Russia. I mean, that's part of it, or strategic placement of U.S. weapons with Russia. It's about micro and modular nuclear reactors. And if you dig into that, you'll understand why Greenland is so important. Everything that's happening, if you look at all the oil and gas, all of a sudden, even though oil and gas is on its way out, it is still what is needed to get things started. And we've got wars in the Middle East. We've got wars potential with Venezuela, obviously with Russia. Those are areas that are the top dog when it comes to that. And even in the Middle East, you've got Yemen with the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. You've got Iran over there with their side of things. And even many people believe what's going on with Israel and Hamas is because of the desire to build a canal there through the Gaza Strip. And it's all because of energy. Other wars, like in Ukraine and other places, have to do with all of the rare earth materials and raw materials needed. Down in Venezuela, again, obviously there's oil there, but there's also in that region that Venezuela has a lot of reach over is some of the largest lithium deposits known to man, and a few others. Iran, certain types of aluminium or certain types of rare earth minerals that are being discovered there. Even here in the United States, if you go back to when Trump took office, and I've mentioned this several times before, if you go back when Trump took office, on his first day or two of being in the office, he had all these AI executives there in the Oval Office. You guys remember that. They were talking about all of this advancement in medicine and surveillance and security from the perspective of AI. But he also signed several executive orders that allowed for the mining of rare earth minerals in certain areas of the United States, to where the state could come in, the government could come in and seize land from private citizens to use it to mine these minerals. And there's a lot of things happening, a lot of laws behind the scenes that are being changed, a lot of regulations that are being changed. All of this is happening because they know that there is a huge fight. I believe very firmly when you hear of whether it's Elon Musk or the United States or others talk about going back to the moon or going to Mars, it's not so that we can explore things or plant a flag somewhere. It's because they want to figure out how to get the minerals and the energy out of certain things. Like the asteroid belt and things like that they could, different asteroids out there and things on the moon and things on Mars. That's really what it's all about. And so when we look at these potential for wars that are happening and the ones that already exist, it's not because someone doesn't like someone. It's pretty much simple as what wars have always been fought over, just slightly different. In the past, if you look throughout human history, most wars were not fought because one guy hated the other guy. In fact, a lot of times they were friends or even related. It was because they wanted their land. They wanted the resources that particular king had. And that's exactly what's going on today. Most of these wars are all wars about resources. They're not retaliations from this or that, or who's going to be the dominant in the region. It's about resources, energy and resources. And when you look at other things that we're learning about, these AI data centers that are being built at just a mind-blowing speed, just in the last 3 to 4 years, about 1,200 have been built across the United States. And over the next 3 to 4 years, they're expected to have another 1,900 or so built. Some of these data centers are costing tens of billions of dollars. In fact, one of the ones that Mark Zuckerberg with Meta is building, the actual site for the data center, the building of this data center, will be 85% the size of Manhattan Island. That is absolutely insane to think about that. The one that they're building down in Abilene, Texas, is the largest construction project America has ever done. Ever. Even bigger than the Hoover Dam. So while people are being distracted from sometimes very legitimate things that are happening, but in the end, they're distracting people from this kind of stuff that's going on. There's so many pieces right now that's in motion. Pieces that were set into motion a decade and 2 and 3 decades ago. Today, some of the people that I met with, we were talking about that. How we've been doing investigations and looking into this kind of stuff for 10, 15, 20 years. And 10, 15, 20 years ago, we were hearing these conspiracies and these rumors and finding little bitty pieces of evidence to indicate that, well, the government or the New World Order was moving this direction. And now, here we are, all these years later, we're actually watching it happen. And so the point that I'm trying to get to you is, even if you don't understand all of these things that I'm saying, I encourage you to do the research and challenge you to prove me wrong. But the main thing is you need to understand that, yeah, these things have been happening and building for the last couple of decades, but they're reaching a point to where they actually happen. They're reaching a point to where these things are actually being put into and implemented in daily life. Look at AI. AI is virtually everywhere. Is AI to the point that it could control us? No, of course not. It's not there yet. But it is growing rapidly, and it's being used in ways in everyday life. And I think part of that is not to make everyday life better, but to desensitize people to using it, to having it involved in their life, to the point that now, in some places, you can go to church and hear an AI preacher, or if you're Catholic, you can go give confession to an AI Jesus. In some countries now, like Albania, they have an AI minister in their government. It's an actual official position within their government, but it's actually done by AI and not humans. They're prepping us. They're getting us ready as a society for this. Because if 10 years ago, they just out of nowhere said, hey, we're going to have AI and digital currency be in control of everything, people would have lost their minds. But now, over years and years of desensitizing us, of seeing how fun and how inviting and how helpful, the AI little thing that you have in your house and on your phone is, well, AI is not too bad. We'll just let it have a little bit more control of our life. Or the digital currency. Oh, digital currencies, bad. It's the mark of the beast. It's evil. But cryptocurrency's not too bad, and stable coins aren't too bad. It's waving my palm over the reader at the grocery store. That's really convenient. That's not too bad either. You see, little by little, they have conditioned us and conditioned the population into accepting this stuff. And all the while, they are building and building their resources, their war chests, so that they can implement the final plan, folks. And it's not that far off. It really isn't. These technologies, like the one that I went and learned about today, it's not so much of creating the technology, it's just the resources and the approval to implement the technology. It's right there. And when these things happen, there'll be nuclear reactors all over the place, powering all these data centers. In fact, every one of these data centers could have their own nuclear reactor powering them. And from what we learned, they are fairly safe. They're even safer than the big ones. But the big point is that they are powering a completely different system, folks. A new tomorrow, a new normal. And I'm telling you, it's right out of the Bible. You need to get ready, folks. Start preparing yourself. I know this is not an exciting topic, but it is a necessary one nonetheless, because these things are happening. This isn't a talk about something that may happen. These things are happening as we speak. They're being developed as we speak. And once it's implemented, it's done. Once they push us into digital currency, it's done. Once AI is in your body and been controlling everything and in your health care and in it's done. You're just going to have to live a life of either complacency and giving in and obedience to the state, or you're going to be an outlaw living in the wildlands. That's it. And so you need to take the time now to prepare yourself, get yourself ready, and figure out how you're going to make it through this now and in the future when things finally take place and are bad. Because that's where they're going. They're going in that direction. Whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, that is where they're going. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.